Hi, this time I've tested the 2020 model of HP Omen 15, so taking the opportunity, let's check how it compares to the previous generation that I tested before. The 2019 and 2020 models got to the point where there is not much that could be done better, so the choice is not that easy. Fortunately, I've got both laptops with the same specs, so the comparison will give you a better view on the differences between these laptops. If you want to make a right choice, you should definitely watch this video before you buy, because today we will compare the performance, thermals, quality, features, other configurations and basically everything that will help you decide which one is better for you. If you don't know my channel yet and you like this kind of comparisons, consider subscribing TechFinds and hit notification bell if you don't wanna miss the upcoming videos. As always, in the video description I left the Amazon links to check the current price, and in the comment section you can find the timestamps to skip to any part of this video. They should work for mobile users as well. This time I also mention our sponsors offer, which is the Coolpo 360-degree conference webcam that combines microphone, camera and speaker into one device and picks up 360-degree view from all angles. It comes with many useful features like background noise blur, echo cancellation, face detection, motion detection and automatic people location based on visual and audio AI algorithms. The device is compatible with many video call platforms including Skype. If you want more details, check the links below. I'm Chris from TechFinds and now let's get to the comparison. First, let's get one thing out of the way. This is the older model that was released in 2019, but then in 2020 it was updated with 10th gen Intel processors and RTX super graphics cards. However, they didn't change the design and the updated models had exactly the same features, so in this video I'll call it the 2019 model. This is the new generation of Omen from 2020. You can easily tell the difference as it has been redesigned, so in this video I'll call it the 2020 model. With that said, let's start with the design that this time has drastically changed. The 2020 model looks much cleaner now. The biggest visual change is the hinge mechanism that was located in the middle for last 3 years, but now HP decided to move the hinges to the opposite edges. The next change is the lid that is plain black now, with new Omen logo that changes the color slightly depending on looking angle. The exhaust has also changed. The new model doesn't look so aggressive anymore compared to the older model where the exhausts looked more sport-like. If it comes to interior, it looks different as well, thanks to the hinge in most part. At the display it's lower to the deck compared to the 2019 model where the gap was higher. As you can see, the keyboard layout and touchpad are different, and I think that overall the 2020 model looks much cleaner now. Both laptops come with thin bezel display, and in both you can find a 720p webcam located properly on the top bezel. The build quality is another thing to mention, and it looks like HP came back with the new generation to what was in older models. The 2020 model has plastic lid and bottom and only metal deck, while the 2019 model is all made of metal. Thanks to metal build, the 2019 model feels more solid, nonetheless the 2020 model is sturdy enough. The good thing about the new Omen is that the fingerprints are very easy to wipe away with a dry wipe, even though they show up relatively easily. The same applies to the 2019 model, but due to the texture and material of the deck, the fingerprints are a bit harder to clean. If it comes to dimensions and weight, the numbers might not show it really, but in real the 2020 model is noticeably smaller and slightly lighter laptop. If it comes to keyboard, this time HP decided to change layout with the new generation. Unfortunately for me, the keyboard in 2020 model comes without number pad. What I like though is that the keys material feels softer and the arrow keys are reasonably big now. You have one dedicated key to open the command center app where you can control your system, and few separate buttons above the arrows like page up and down, delete, calculator and so on. Unfortunately, the power button is in awkward position. Not only it is a part of the keyboard, but it's located between other keys. Single short press will not turn your laptop off though. The keyboard was nice to type on, the spacing was good, and the key travel was about the same or slightly shallower than in the 2019 model. If it comes to lighting, my unit had 4-zone RGB with separate lighting for WSAD keys, but according to HP website this model is also available with optional perky RGB or red light only. But I've seen that it also comes with white lighting. In 2019 model you have also 4-zone RGB and it's available with solid red lighting as well. The keyboard has 1.5mm key travel, good spacing, it's comfortable to type on and easy to get used to. It has one dedicated key to open the command center app, but unfortunately the arrow keys are pretty small. Even though the keyboard in 2020 model feels more comfortable to use, I personally would choose the keyboard from 2019 model as it is full size with number pad that I use a lot. If it comes to touchpad, I love how clean it looks in the 2020 Omen. It uses Windows Precision drivers and it has really big surface thanks to the fact that there are no separate buttons. For navigation you can use the gestures and the bottom part clicks down. The touchpad in 2019 model uses Elan drivers, but it's really precise and I liked using it. The surface is smaller than in the 2020 model, but the good thing is that it has dedicated buttons for left and right click. Both laptops have exactly the same port selection, so we have all the ports listed here. Pause the video if you want to see it longer. If it comes to display, my both models that I had came with 1080p 144Hz IPS panel with about 9 milliseconds response time, and before you ask, no G-Sync here because I had the configurations with RTX 2060. If you want G-Sync you have to choose the model with RTX 2070 or 2080. There are also other display options that you can choose, including 1080p 60Hz, 1080p 240Hz and 4K 60Hz. As the 2020 model came out, HP added also 1080p 300Hz display option available for both generations, and I've heard about 4K 120Hz, but I couldn't find it anywhere. Now, since both displays were the same, the color coverage and brightness was identical as well. You can easily use any of these laptops for video or photo editing, the games look great and smooth, and the viewing angles are good. The quality of both panels was good. The camera was able to capture some backlight bleeding in both cases, but it was not visible to my eye during normal use even when the screen was black. Alright, so now let's talk about available configurations and approximated prices of both laptops, but please note that the prices might change with time. So in the video description I left the Amazon links for USA and other countries to check the current prices of certain configurations that I found. Both laptops have wide range of configurations, while the 2019 model is available with 9th and 10th gen Intel processors, and the 2020 model comes only with 10th gen so far, but you have also a choice of new Ryzen 4000 series processors that have good price to performance ratio. If it comes to graphics, you have both models with the same selection of GPUs, starting from budget models with GTX 1650 and finishing on top end with RTX 2080 Super Max-Q. It's worth mentioning that for the 2019 15-inch models, the RTX 2070 and 2080 are actually Max-Q, while the 17-inch models come with full power versions of these graphics cards. The 2020 model doesn't have the 17-inch version for the day of recording this video. Alright, coming back to the review, let's talk about speakers. The Omen uses Bang & Olufsen audio and it sounds good. It can get loud without distortion and the sound is crispy and clear. There is some bass, but it's nowhere close to something like Asus Scar 3. This applies to both generations, however I found the 2020 model to be audibly louder. If it comes to performance and cooling, this is where the things get really interesting. I've got both units with the same specs, so the comparison will give you a better idea of what to expect from each device. I pushed both laptops to the limits, so for testing purposes I set the performance mode in both laptops for more CPU power, and I enabled the maximum fan speed for better cooling. When I was testing the 2020 model, the Omen Command Center got an update allowing us to manually adjust the fan speed, undervolt the CPU, and they removed the comfort mode, leaving us with either performance or balanced. Here is a quick preview of the game performance, but if you want to see more games tested, check out my gaming benchmark videos where I tested 20 games on each laptop. Links to the videos will be in the description. It's worth to mention that the configuration of 2020 Omen with Ryzen 7 processor and GTX 1660 Ti costs $300 less than the one with i7 and RTX 2060, while the performance is very comparable. If it comes to thermals, the 2019 Omen was on a warmer side, reaching the average CPU temperature of 93 degrees Celsius and average GPU temperature of 74 degrees when I tested it right out of the box. Fortunately, thanks to undervolting, you are able to significantly lower the temperature of the CPU. Here you can see the results of my tests on different settings. It looks like the most optimal settings for both good temperatures and performance was to set the performance mode and undervolt the CPU by minus 0.130 volts. In my case, it made the power limit to stay at the same constant level of 49 watts. The laptop could still reach the maximum possible clock speed, surprisingly low temperatures without thermal throttling, and practically the same good performance as with other settings that cause much more heat. The default mode, which limits the CPU power to 30 watts, is worth considering as well when your game doesn't need the full power of CPU to reach the highest frame rate. It is possible that the upgrade to the Omen Command Center might have an impact on how the cooling system and power limit work in the 2019 model, but unfortunately I am not able to test it anymore and see if the update applies to this model too. The 2020 model was much cooler right out of the box, reaching the average of 84 degrees Celsius on the CPU and only 68 degrees on the GPU. That was when the processor was working normally at 45 watts as intended, but unfortunately the next time I tested this laptop the CPU TDP stuck at 35 watts due to power limit throttling and it never came back higher. Of course the temperature dropped even lower, which is good, and the performance was still good, but I personally don't like to see that limit set by the system when you can't even do anything about that. From what I've seen at first, I think that the 2020 Omen has cooling system efficient enough to let the CPU run at 45 watts, so I don't understand that power limit. On the other hand, the dynamic CPU power limit in the 2019 Omen gave me total control over the limits by undervolting and changing the power modes. If it comes to 2020 model, it was nonsense to undervolt the processor as it was working on 35 watts and the temperatures were very low. If you pay attention to the fan noise, you will be happy with the 2019 Omen as it is audibly quieter than the 2020 model. Alright, enough about performance, now let's talk about upgradability and storage. I tested the M.2 SSD speeds in both laptops and here are the results. If you will buy any of these laptops with only SSD, you will probably wanna add more storage, so if it comes to accessibility, I find the 2020 model easier to upgrade. You have to unscrew only 8 screws to get access to your RAM and 2 M.2 PCIe slots. Unfortunately, there is no slot for 2.5-inch hard drive. The lid goes off just easily in both cases. In 2019 model you have 6 screws to remove and inside you can find your M.2 NVMe SSD, 2.5-inch hard drive and 2 RAM slots. If you worry about breaking something, I made a step-by-step detailed guide where I am showing you how to disassemble and upgrade each laptop. So if you're planning to add more RAM, swap out your hard drive or SSD, you can check it out. Links to the videos will be in the description. As for the battery life, I managed to use the 2019 Omen for 4.5 hours when browsing the web and doing light productivity work. When gaming, battery died after 1 hour and 10 minutes. The 2020 model was a bit behind, running 3 hours and 50 minutes when light work and 1 hour when gaming. Alright, it seems to be everything that you need to know to wisely choose one of these laptops, but before we finish let me share my closing thoughts. So if it comes to the older model, I think that the main pro of it is ability to fully control the power limits and cooling. It has great performance and with a bit of tweaking the temperatures are good while the fans are relatively quiet compared to other gaming laptops. Compared to the 2020 model it has practically the same features, but in some areas it's even better, for example all metal build, longer battery life and lower prices for most of configurations. Moreover, undervolting has more impact to the temperatures, so as I mentioned before you have extended control over the cooling. For me personally, another advantage of the older model is full-size keyboard and ability to go for the 17-inch version. On the other hand, the 2020 model wins for sure if it comes to design. I love this clean and professional look and compact chassis. It has only metal deck, but it still feels sturdy and premium. The temperatures are great, but sadly achieved by lowering the CPU power when it's not even needed. Nonetheless, the performance seems to be not affected, which is pretty strange. In my opinion, the main advantage of the 2020 Omen over the older model is having Ryzen processors in offer. At the time of recording, I found the configuration with the GTX 1660 Ti and 8-core Ryzen 7 4800H for only $1,150, while the equivalent models of 2019 Omen were $100 more expensive and still having 2 less cores. However, if I had to choose, I'd rather go for the 2019 model as I like tweaking and having more control over the cooling. I also need a full-size keyboard and it's good to have a 17-inch option, but each person has different needs and expectations, so I am curious what is your choice. I hope that this video helped you decide, so if you know which laptop you're gonna buy now, let us know in the comments. If you're new to the channel, it would be awesome if you consider subscribing Tech Finds. On my channel you can find detailed laptop reviews, laptop comparisons, gaming benchmarks and more. Now thanks for your time and see you in the next video.